welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Danny Cannell. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson. We have a lot to get to today, including, of course, our picks against the spread on the total for Army-Navy. That game coming up on Saturday, America's game, 3 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch it on CBS. You can stream it for free on CBSSports.com. And you should join us for the Cover 3 Army-Navy watch party here on YouTube.com/Cover3. Thanks to all of you that are joining us at YouTube.com/Cover3 for this extra special weekend preview edition. We're also going to open things up, just one game on the slate, to some of the other, moving pieces within college football, including what does the future look like for the Clemson football program? Athletic director Dan Radakovich reportedly set to be introduced as Miami's new athletic director later today on Thursday. Tony Elliott sure seems like it is getting really close to him being introduced as the new coach at Virginia. So that means OC, DC, AD. Ooh, those are some open jobs that are very significant within the college sports landscape. What does that mean for Dabo Swinney and the Tigers program? We'll get to that. College football playoff expansion, early signing period, just a lot of topics that are kind of bubbling at this point in the season. But we begin. Do we play the locks theme for this, guys, or do you think we just dive into to game preview? Because I got some good gambling notes here before we get to our actual locks. And does this count for the season total, or is that wrapped?
Let's
throw it in there. I got to catch Tom. I got to catch him.
Well, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, we can count it. I don't think we've ever counted it before, but I don't care. I'm all for change.
All right, let's lock it up.
We're picking locks. My Blue Plate special 5-star locks are coming.
Since 2005, when Service Academies
Come get these locks. 5-star master lock. Lock it up.
The under is 33-9-1. We've gone over it a million times.
You want these locks?
I'm living and dying every point, every cover.
There were some requests for new locks music. I think I can do that this offseason because we need to update the record. I've got to get either a drop of Disciplined Danny, Undisciplined Danny, or DK 2-for-1 special. Just like something that's like very on brand for what you're bringing to the locks pod and some of your favorite plays. But Tom, do you have our updated Service Academy unders right now?
Why, yes. As a matter of fact, I do. Since 2005, Chip, the under in games between service academies is 40-9-1. I have to say that dash because I don't want people to get confused and think I'm saying 49-1 because that would only be close to what the record is. The record is actually 49-1, including 2-0 this year.
How about each of the last 15 meetings, specifically between Army-Navy, has gone under, and that streak begins right before Navy coach Ken Niumatalolo took over. The under is 13-0 when he is the head coach in this rivalry. In terms of the back and forth, Army's won 4 out of the last 5 in the series. If Army loses, then Army retains the Commander-in-Chief trophy. If Army wins, then they claim it outright. On the season, Army 8-3 straight up, 6-5 against the spread. The under in Army's games are 6-5. For Navy, 3-8 straight up, 7-4 against the spread. Likewise, the under is 6-5. Danny, you are going to be part of some extra special CBS Sports HQ coverage. You are coming to us live from the city. So are you going to be in MetLife Stadium? Go ahead and set the scene and let us know what we can expect from the coverage on CBS Sports HQ.
I can't wait. I've been to the site of the Army-Navy game probably 5 years running with SiriusXM.
Oh, cool.
But I've always done a Friday radio show and then gotten back to my family. This is the first time I will actually be at the game. I will go watch the march on and see the grand entrance, the pomp and circumstance, stick around for the game. But yeah, HQ, I got to talk to our guy, Dane, got to iron out the exact details of where our set is going to be. I'm not sure if it's on the field, if it's in one of the terminals. I don't know if it's outside the stadium. I think it's a little bit of everything. We might be all over the place. I think we're doing a halftime hit too. My guess is on the field because there was a credential requested there. So I cannot wait for that. It's going to be awesome. I mean, taking in a lot of rivalries, always heard, and this one gets overlooked so often too, because when you think about greatest, rivalries, go Iron Bowl, Ohio State, Michigan, kind of the usual suspects. But this one with the history of these two schools going at it, unbelievable. So I cannot wait.
It's very basic and been a running theme throughout the entire season, but this is a game where I'm happy fans are in the stands. Like, do you remember the fanless Army Navy last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Didn't quite hit the same. So I'm excited to see all the cadets in the stands as well. As you're Tom, go ahead. I'll let you take a lead here because there are some expectations in terms of what your pick is in this game, but let's also look at it from the aspect of what kind of contest you expect, where Army has been the better team for so much of the season, but yet we have seen this game often deliver a result that's going to be closer than expected. How are you attacking this, not only from the total, but even your expectations for the side?
I mean, I would assume it's going to be close. Like, do you want me to just get into my locks real quick and then explain
let's
them?
do it.
All right. Well,
Sure.
Obviously I'm on the under 34.5. I don't really need to explain that.
Obvi.
But like, I'm also going to be taking Navy +7. And it's because just the way that these games work, it's like Army's probably going to win because it has been the better team all season long. And typically in this game, the better team does win. It's just usually neither team is really able to pull away from the other one just because of the style of play. It's an option offense. You're limiting possessions. And when you're going up against another option offense, like, it's not crazy to think that each team's going to get one possession per quarter. You know what I mean? So it's hard to blow a team out when you've only got the ball 4 or 5 times and they're getting the ball 4 or 5 times too. So it's going to come down to turnovers. Games like this usually do. If Army takes care of the football, it's probably going to win because I think it's better than Navy, but I will take Navy in the points. I do expect it to be low scoring. I do expect it to be close. And yeah, so I am on under 34.5 and I'm on Navy +7.5.
Danny?
Man. So the lowest total of the season so far was 35.5, Iowa, Wisconsin. That game went under. Last year, the total in this game was 36, the lowest of any game during the 15-0 Army streak. That game was won 15-0.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so bad I want to go over. I'm going to go over. I think it's going to buck the trend. And I also, and I want to catch Tom, by the way, too. I also am going to lay the 7.5 with the Army Black Knights and take the favorite, bucking the trend as of late. Let's go.
I can get you 7 and I get you 34. So
that even better. Let's go. I'm taking some of those. Although, man, this is totally bucking the trend. Or all of the trends that are out there. I worry about this game for Ken Niumatalolo. Like, I wonder if this maybe is his last game as the head coach at Navy. And it kind of started, remember last year's kickoff game against BYU?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, empty stadium, so it was weird. And the game was an absolute beatdown. And Ken Niumatalolo after was frustrated. He apologized. We haven't been tackling. And it kind of was the beginning of this downward spiral because it's been a rough couple years. Just wonder if Ken Niumatalolo decides to either walk away or they tell him to walk away, one or the other. I don't think Navy's not very good. So I like what Jeff Monken did. They had the little 3-game losing stretch during the middle of the season. That game they gave up 70 to Wake, but then getting it back on track. Although the Air Force game was close, which kind of goes to these always being close for the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. But if I'm going to take the over, I do think if the over hits, it's got to be like a 35-3, like blowout from Army. I don't know if Navy's going to put up many points. So I think Army could win this one and it could get a little sideways for this rivalry. But last year was a blowout, 15-0, according to these standards. So I'm talking myself out of it, man.
Well,
I'm sticking with it. I'm catching Tom.
Yeah. I think you got to stick with it. It was so long ago, but worth noting, Remember when offensive coordinator Ivan Jasper got fired, but then brought back? Like, to your point
Then came
about
back, yeah.
to your point about the way that this has been a little bit shaky for Navy. But first of all, I am 100% going to be on the under, but Elliot is going to be on the over. So you know what that means, gentlemen.
Which means 2 weeks in a row.
1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a lock war. Lock war.
Only appropriate that we have a lock war
During Army Navy. Yeah.
During Army Navy. So yeah,
I'm the only Patriot out here who wants to see. Well, Bud is. We're the Patriots. You guys want to see low scoring. I want to see fireworks.
All right,
I want to see success.
No. I want to see the true like land grab, because isn't that the principle of sort of like the option offense in the beginning of football?
Right.
Like it is militaristic land grab. We're slowly going to take over this. We're going to have you retreat. You're going to have you back up. But
we are going to colonize the hell out of this field. We're not going to call it a colony though, but we're going to colonize the hell out of it.
Yes. It is. Yeah. I love the land grab idea, the land grab perspective of football. It goes back to the sports roots. Very, very American. I also am going to be taking Navy on this one, and I cannot help but pay attention and try to like note without overreacting that Navy, I mentioned 7-4 against the spread, but they could have quit. I mean, this is a team that looked so bad early that a bottom fallout type situation would suggest that, like this team might have been 3-8 straight up and 3-8 against the spread. We saw remember I always go back to the final year of Bobby Petrino at Louisville as one of the most stunning bottom fallout situations that I'd seen, where they had not only lost their last 8 or 9 games, but also didn't cover the spread, and not only didn't cover the spread, but also wasn't covering the spread by like 10 points. Like they were 17-point underdogs losing by 27 on average. It was incredible, but that's not what we've had here with Navy. That obviously we remember them playing Cincinnati pretty close. That was a 28.5-point spread. It was 27-20. And Ken Niumatalolo has so much pride with this program. I would think that even if he is about to walk off or, get out of there, I would hope that he's not going to mail it in on, this kind of game. So I'm with the low total that I'm expecting, obviously, by taking the under, and with and with Navy, the way that it kind of has been a little bit feisty, I will take the 7. We can't get 7 in a hook anymore.
I can get you 7 in a hook. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nice. That's what I want.
That hook is huge.
A little weather update, unseasonably warm. It's been freezing. It's still cold out right now, but I think it's going to be like game temp of 65. Watch out. Not that I don't know if it matters or not.
Yeah. Like
By the way, Navy,
maybe like 60 next week here.
Navy played a playoff team to within a touchdown.
That's right. That's what that offense is designed to do. It just makes it really hard for you to pull away. Like think back the last couple years ago when it was Oklahoma and Army, and that game went to overtime on pay-per-view, and none of us could see it. That's just what when they play well, there's nobody that can pull away from them.
But even looking at the two rushing offenses, like there's a down-to-down basis difference between these two teams running the ball, and a down-to-down difference between these two teams defending the run. Like Army is better in both of those categories. They run the ball between 58 and 61 times a game each, but yet there's like 70 yard per game differential between the two, and with Army having the advantage. And then when we talk about rush defense, I think that Army is like in the top 15 or so, while Navy's outside the top 30. Like there are all these like per game and down to down differences that Navy has to close the gap. And that's what I'm, hoping for, obviously, here is not just that they're going to be able to keep it close because the game's going to be low scoring, but that they're going to have to really raise their level of play, which, I don't know, underdog in a rivalry game, right?
Yeah. No, that's like if you go back to what you're talking about, rush defense, just if you want to use some advanced stats, neither of them are elite, obviously, because they just don't have the talent for it. But Army ranks 52nd nationally in defensive EPA against the run, while Navy's 91st, and in success rate, Army is 14th, while Navy's 86th. So that is a legitimate concern, and it is part of the reason to think that Army is the more likely of the two to just have a quote unquote perfect day, whereas Navy might get stopped one or two times.
What about the wind conditions? Because we just said if the temps are high, then we're not necessarily in the wonder category. But if we got red zone stops, we might have some field goal attempts. And field goal attempts, even though we're talking about teams that only throw the ball like 7 or 8 times a game, we could still have, field goal attempts that get pushed around by that wind.
All right, so here's where it's interesting. There's not going to be a lot of wind, and temperatures are supposed to be in the low 50s for this one. But while they're overcast skies at the beginning of the game, we've got some possible rain moving in as the game goes along. So it could be 2 option offenses playing in the rain.
Turnover, scoop and score.
Yeah, no, that could
zone.
lead to typically, like bad weather like that, rain, and Philly's turf. So it's not like it's, the plastic grass. It's the real stuff. There's
this is
mud.
MetLife. We're in the Giants.
Oh, we're at MetLife. That's right. Oh, so then the rain might not have as big of a factor then as far as that's concerned. But yeah, fumbles will be a big problem. And wet footballs with option offenses, not great.
Watch out. There we
Do y'all have
getting nervous?
Are we going to have any presidential arrivals or anything that you have to worry about for security purposes?
Oh, yeah, you better get there early.
Haven't told us. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but there was, there's always the give your background, or a driver's license number and that type stuff. They do the quick background. I don't think they even announce it if they are going to come. Like it's supposed to, they don't want you to know.
But haven't we been at a couple national title games with the presidential arrival, and the word kind of like slowly gets out? And it's
I think they're like day of. I don't know if it'll be out this early, but day of game, we'll start to know. I'll let you guys know for sure.
You'll know when you get to the stadium and it takes you 3 hours to get inside.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can tell me. I mean, I guess that's cool. I'm probably more concerned for you and just making sure that you can get in there and just
early enough for my 11 a.m. hit.
It's just don't be alarmed when you see the heavily armed people coming in the elevator with you. Like, what?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else from this game? Again, 3 p.m. Eastern time is the kickoff. You can watch it on CBS. You can watch it on CBSSports.com. Army, favored by about 7.5. Our total currently sitting around 34.5. Depending on where you want it, of course, go get out there and shop around. Anything else that you're keeping your eyes on here?
Other than when you're watching it on CBS, make sure you're watching us on YouTube at the same time. No.
Second screen experience, youtube.com/cover3 for the Cover 3 watch party. We will have some special guests. We will be, giving, for example, during our halftime, definitely have a screen for CBS Sports HQ to watch Danny on CBS Sports HQ. And I'm sure they'll include this as part of that. But, we'll be making halftime picks, hitting that live line, giving you those second half picks, being able to give you the opportunity, no matter what you took pregame, to jump in there. But very excited about that. Army and Navy coming up this weekend. Again, the live show, youtube.com/cover3. Yeah,
if the halftime live line is 17, you going over?
No. I'm going to be firing live under after live under after live under. After every possession, I'm going to fire the under.
Okay, so Weston actually asked this earlier in the live chat, and again, I was talking to my good friend Paul, who listens to the podcast. He listens on Spotify. Thank you, Paul. And he was like, "Oh, did people are watching?" I was like, "Yeah, a lot of people are watching and talking to us through the whole show." Weston in the live chat says, "At what total would Tom actually consider the over?" The chat has its own suggestions. Tom, I want to go ahead and ask you, at what number would you actually consider the over in Army Navy?
According to my numbers, I should be taking the over now.
Ooh.
But as I've talked about with Bud before, when Bud made this dumbass mistake during the Navy Air Force game earlier this season, when he was foolish enough to go against me in the locks with it, the numbers always tell you to take the over in this game. but the over never hits. That's the reason why the totals are always as high as they are compared to what the final score is, because sports books go off those numbers, but they don't factor in just a lot of the stuff that tends to happen in these games. With that said, the totals are getting lower. That, like a few years ago, the totals for these games were still in the upper 40s. At least they've kind of started catching on and handicapping it down to the 30s, but still, it might lose. It doesn't matter. It's a principle thing. You take the under. There's no reason to take the over because the over never hits.
And the response, Wade guessed that 20 was where you might take an over.
I would take the under.
Kevin says
Under.
20.5. And
Under.
Dwight says 2.5.
Over, because somebody's got to win. Yeah. So, yeah, no, 2.5 is the correct answer.
Yeah, at 2.5, Tom Fornelli begins to consider. What about 7.5 over?
Under.
Under.
You can win 7-0.
Come on, we just saw 15-0.
Yeah, it's not that far away.
Coming up on the other side. Oh, yeah, actually, we'll address this on the other side. Coming up on the other side, we start to look at some big moving pieces from all around college football. We'll get into what's ahead for a new era of Clemson football and more next. Bud, by the way, is great. Some people asking, where Bud's at. I don't know. Has he done any like Twitter announcements or anything?
I don't think so.
He's fantastic. Maggie is fantastic. I believe he said on the show many times that, his wife is very pregnant, and everyone is very excited about the new addition to their family. I don't want to spoil his big announcement of name and everything, but
Cover 3 podcast, Elliot.
I'm
Welcome to the world.
I'm excited for him to tell you all about closing line value, Elliot, coming into the world. But he's great. Maggie's great. The family's good. And he will be back with us, but of course, very important things that he is tending to right now.
He's making a terrible mistake though, betting the over, because it's like now you've got 2 kids to pay college for and you're just going to throw that money away. You need to start investing better, but you got to be smarter about it.
Well, he said he already did a huge fist pump over just the fact that it was another boy on the no wedding payments. And I remember he pointed the conversation at Danny where he's like, it's like, Danny's really loading up on these alt lines, trying to catch Tom and trying to save for future weddings.
I got 3 of them. Let's go. Set aside the fun now.
First quarter team total, Elliot. Congratulations from Wills. All right, so a lot of movement here, and the thing that's so interesting to me is that we can talk about Clemson, but the impacts of this are very wide ranging, because Dan Radakovich, the former Clemson athletic director, as we started recording here today, it was made official he's going to be the next athletic director at Miami. My read on Dan Radakovich's time at Clemson is that he was a projects guy. The indoor facility, brand new, Little John Coliseum got renovation. They got a new softball stadium. Once all these projects were done, it's not that there was nothing for him to do, but he'd moved around from place to place. He'd been sort of moving up the ladder. Certainly, there are many projects that are involved with what's in the future of Miami. And as we mentioned the first time that we talked about this move, he did get his graduate degree from Miami, and I believe he spent some of his early time at Miami as well. So he goes to team up with Mario Cristobal. When you say Clemson's athletic director and Oregon's head coach have met in Miami to try and revitalize the U, that's very significant. There's also the Tony Elliott. It looks like it's looking like it will be Virginia. We already know Brent Venables. Do y'all want to attack the any of these individual moves first, or do you want to jump straight to Dabo, Clemson, and the future of the Tigers football? Because there's lots of threads to this that I find are pretty interesting.
Let's start with Clemson first, because I don't know about you guys. The athletic director moves, they're like, I'm like, okay, I get it. But the bigger deal is, what's the conversation been the last several years has been, how are we going to break up the monopoly that Bama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Clemson have had? And we've seen this thing broken up a little bit. Georgia's still there. Bama's still in the playoff. But I think when we've had these discussions, well, because when it's happening, you never know, like, how does the end happen? It's like too late. And then you're like, what happened? But when we've tried to predict, or not even predict, because I don't think any of us want it to happen, but it's just when you look at ways that dynasties come to an end, I've always said you miss on a quarterback or you miss on your coordinator hires. Because if you're that good of a program, you're going to have cycle and you're going to have turnovers. And if you look at other programs that have, that were once storied programs, Florida State's one of them. I look at Texas at the end of Mac Brown, like missed on a few quarterbacks, and that was kind of the beginning of the end. So now you've got, I'm not saying they've missed on DJ Uyunglele yet, but that was not the quarterback play that we were used to. Now you've got another massive challenge in losing both of your coordinators. And I do think this is different than losing a co-offensive coordinator in Jeff Scott. It's probably equivalent to losing Chad Morris. And I do think the offense hasn't been as good without Chad Morris there, or as innovative, I guess, because they've had the talent. They've been able to win without it. I just think it's a different looking system that might have been carried by some of the incredible talent they've had. So now this is like a really, like, this will be the first massive test, I think, for Dabo Swinney to have to pass and carry this program to keep it going the way it's been going, or else there will be a setback. And every other ACC team probably is thinking the same thing, like, ooh, is this our chance? And I think you've got it, like, as an outsider of non-Clemson, like, I think you've got to be excited as this is an opportunity maybe from other teams to make some inroads.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a concern because this is a program, like you mentioned, Chad Morris was the OC, and then it was Jeff Scott, Tony Elliott doing the co-coordinators. But for the most part, like, this has been a very stable program from like a coaching front and just from the top down, where it's like you compare it to Alabama, which is proof that it can, this isn't a death knell for Clemson. Programs can overcome this kind of stuff. Alabama does it every single year, where Nick is kind of rotating guys in and out of important spots and finding replacements, and the machine keeps moving on. But that's not something that Clemson's really dealt with yet. So this is kind of a first time thing for them, because in the last few years now, you lost Scott to USF, you're losing Tony to Virginia, you've lost Venables to Oklahoma. So you're going to have new coordinators on both sides of the ball. And from everything I've read so far, it sounds like it's going to be internal hires, like they're not going to be going outside. So maybe that helps kind of keep the stability and everything going forward of what you do. Everybody's just kind of stepping up and taking on a larger role, but you're still going to have, from the looks of it, first time decision makers and play callers in both these roles, which could lead to problems early in the season and maybe, cost you a game or two that in the end ends up costing you a playoff spot. So I do feel like with the questions around DJU, with all these coaching changes in the offseason, Clemson's going to go into next year, I think, a lot more vulnerable than it's used to being. Like, we were surprised by them going with 9-3 this season. It was a disappointment. I think next year, when it comes time for us to start doing our predictions, we're probably going to be predicting Clemson to be about 9-3. So it's going to be interesting to see whether they exceed those expectations, whether they continue to go back, or what happens. It's one of the more fascinating things about next season already that I'm kind of interested in watching. And as for Dan Radakovich, like you said, Danny, like, AD changes don't really mean a whole ton to me, especially when it's like he's not the guy who hired Dabo. So me, so that doesn't really impact them. And as you said, Chip, like, he's a projects guy. Miami's got a lot of projects. There's been the talk of wanting that on-campus stadium. He's somebody that maybe they think can help them get that done. So that's what's going on there. So it makes plenty of sense for that, and it doesn't really concern me about Clemson, but I think it will be interesting. And they also know that the athletic director that they're hiring again, I believe, is going to be an internal promotion from, like, a guy that's been second in charge for years is not going to be in the top spot. So it's interesting. I don't know if it's going to be a terrible thing for them, though.
There was an opportunity here for Dabo Swinney to have a Nick Saban fork in the road, because Nick Saban's ability to deal with staff turnover, to me, is one of the things that has helped him elevate his status and continue to have success throughout the college football playoff era. I know that the offensive staff did change a little bit through the BCS era, but, Kirby was there for about a decade as the defensive coordinator. And then all of a sudden you had to start figuring out, new faces to get in there, and you had to find ways to be able to maintain that high level of play and compete for national championships. Started losing offensive coordinators pretty regularly, and then you had to find ways to replace them. You had to try one year with Brian Daboll, didn't work, and you had to have the knowledge, like, okay, we got to move on this right now and make some changes. And I think that Dabo Swinney, there was a chance, and this is just me being selfish as someone who likes to talk about the sport and follow it. There was a chance for us to see what Dabo looks like as someone who goes out to make these hires. It's something that we've talked about a lot in recent weeks about a value of a head coach that can make you a good head coach. How good are you at making hires? How good are you at interviewing candidates, finding someone who's going to fit your team, your roster, and bringing them in and finding success? They're going to keep it all in the family. That's a very, very Clemson move. But I wonder if, there could be opportunities to bring in new voices. And I wonder if, and I only say that not because I think it won't work to promote internally, but because the greatest college football coach of all time has shown that bringing in new voices, and Saban has said this specifically about Kiffin, I know, allowed him to change his perspective in ways that he started to think were better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I also think too, like, just Clemson's fan base isn't like the Alabama fan base as far as like its vocalness online and its size online and how mad it gets at you online. But I will say, from like my interactions with Clemson fans, most of them don't seem all that upset about Elliott leaving. Like they were more upset about Venables, and a lot of them think it might be a good thing for them offensively to get some new ideas in there.
I do think a year changes things too. Maybe at the end of last year, getting bounced from the playoff the way they did. But this, I would tend to agree with, we have a comment in here from Wade. I don't think Tony is a great coordinator. The returns haven't been outstanding. And if you watch some of their games, you have heard some other analysts be pretty critical of the play calling. I do think it has helped a lot to have Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence bailing them out of some of the plays. So and remember though, this thing that's interesting about this, I would echo your sentiment, Chip. I hope he goes outside. I hope, because things do get stale. People watch your concepts. They start to catch up to them. They start to counter those on both sides of the ball. I think it'd be wise for Dabo to look outside, bring in some new voice, some new perspective, not culturally, because they have a great culture, the buy into the family, all that, but schematically to get some new life, some new blood in there. And if you remember, Dabo was on the hot seat at one time early in his career. And guess what he did? He was forced to bring in Brent Venables and Chad Morris, and the rest is history. Like that was one of the best things that ever happened to Dabo, was his hand was forced, and he did have to make those changes. So I think that'll be interesting to see. Does he go outside or does he come from within? I hope he goes outside. I think that's best for the program.
Do like the Nick Saban finishing school for wayward coaches, but like Manny Diaz in to run the defense, and who could he bring in for offensive?
Who's out there right now?
What if he hires Bill O'Brien away?
Ooh. So, all right, let's get really weird here before we discuss Tony Elliott at UVA. Does this change your view on Dabo's timeline with Clemson?
I kind of half jokingly said in the text thread yesterday, I was like, so does this mean Dabo's going to the Raiders or something? Because, the Raiders loves drafting Clemson players, and it's like he needs a coach, and Dabo's losing all his coaches, and it's like, well, screw it. Maybe I'll just get the coach. I love his players so much. But no, I don't know. I don't think that. I mean, where's Dabo going to go right now? I don't think the NFL really makes a ton of sense for him.
It's an awful fit, personality, like just style-wise, the motivation, the family atmosphere, which is great. And I would send my son to play with him for him in a heartbeat. I just don't know if it works at the next level.
Dabo Swinney citing the only exciting part of Raiders' brutal loss from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, talking about Dabo being on the sideline in Raiders gear for that 17-15 defeat to the Washington football team. I think that the Las Vegas Raiders fan base, which is of course a national fan base, all over the place, plenty in California and really throughout the entire country, it is hilarious that the Las Vegas Raiders are pining for old Dabo Swinney.
Yeah. That'd be quite a cultural shift.
Quite a shift.
Dabo's appearing at the he's at the MGM tonight. He's doing a one-man show.
But I mean, there's plenty in there's plenty in Las Vegas for everybody. It's not always as great as it's cracked up to be, but it's not as bad as some people try to vilify it for. So I'm much love to Vegas. All right, what about Elliott to UVA? Because if Clemson fans are, having, as you mentioned, some mixed reactions here, Danny, it's a C plus. But how do we look at this hire in terms of Virginia moving ahead with a coordinator, a coach who has been in the mix for other Power 5 jobs, even potentially SEC jobs in recent years? If you just look at it like that, like if I were to say, hey, this guy turns down, reportedly, allegedly, may have turned down Tennessee, and now he's decided to come to your university. If I'm a Virginia fan, I'm like, okay, this guy, we're getting a good one from the coaching market. Do you think that Tony Elliott in Virginia is going to be a fit that's going to be able to deliver some results that Wahoo's fans could be excited with?
We don't know the results. Danny, C plus. Me, I have no idea if it'll work. I think it's a good hire. I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of the reasons we were talking yesterday, Chip, about why I thought Tony Elliott made sense for Duke. As far as a cultural fit, this is a good place for Tony Elliott, because if you think of the culture of the Clemson program, they have, they're always recruiting the OKGs, the our kind of guys. And Tony Elliott's been a great recruiter at helping identify the guys that they want and then convincing them to come. And at Virginia, you have to recruit in a different way because of the academic standards of the school. It's one of the, tougher public schools to get into in the country. So you can't just recruit everybody that you can recruit everywhere else. So you need a guy who knows how to get around that. He's a smart guy. He's a very good recruiter. He understands the area. He's recruited in the area for years. I mean, he's from California, but he spent his entire professional career and collegiate playing career in the Carolinas, in that region. So I think he makes a ton of sense. And obviously he understands part of the blueprint from being at Clemson of what it takes to build a successful program. So if you're Virginia and you kind of unexpectedly lose Bronco Mendenhall all of a sudden at this point of the carousel, I think being able to land somebody like Tony Elliott, it's about as good as you could hope for, realistically.
Agree with everything you said. The only thing I would just counter with is you learn how to build you learn how to build a program culture at Clemson. And I totally agree. I love the family all-in mindset. But you know what else helps build that program? The talent on the 4 and 5 star players that are all over the field. Then you're not going to have access to those at Virginia. You can try, but it's going to be the same issue that Brian Kelly dealt with at Notre Dame. When you go give him that list of 10 players, there's maybe one. When you go to Clemson, it's okay. Here, do you need 5 more? Do you need to go a little bit further? So I think that'll be challenging. I also think it's fascinating because I'm sure you guys have seen the Brent Venables presser and stuff. Man, does he sound like he just is building and I know he started at Oklahoma, but man, you can tell he learned about culture and building family and all this stuff at Clemson. He's bringing that to Norman, which you can do in college. That's the great part about it. And I think that's something that should excite you. I do think it'll be, again, curious to see where Tony Elliott goes with his coordinator positions. Does he bring guys with him from Clemson? Does he go from out? Does he kind of piecemeal this together? Because I think that'll be a huge part of it, because Robert and that system, Virginia fans, I know they weren't happy with the overall, Bronco Mendenhall experience, but maybe you say, hey, Robert and do you want to stay on and be my coordinator? Because is Brennan Armstrong coming out yet? Has he been announced?
I don't know if he's announced. I think think he might come back, honestly. I just don't know what his NFL kind of evaluation is going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that offense, that could be a blow to the system for Virginia fans if all of a sudden they come out there and they're not throwing for 400 yards a game. And I get it's a little bit too one-dimensional, but they've got some talent there on that side of the ball for sure.
Tom, did you get the DM from the Virginia fan who was saying, yeah, they put up a bunch of yards, but the season's on the line again. Not season, the game's on the line against your biggest rival, and you throw it to the right tackle. It's just what?
Maybe they don't. Well, that was a good point, though. That's a fair point.
We love the creativity, but if it's very funny that one play seems to have really dug and understand against a zombie Virginia Tech team. It was not the way that you wanted to finish the season in the Commonwealth Cup. But it was. Didn't you get that message?
No, I think that was But I mean, yeah, no
I'll
creativity.
probably get it now because we're just recommending Robert and I as a holdover. I'll definitely get it.
Like,
It doesn't help.
Creativity is a double-edged sword. So
Yeah.
I know Brennan Armstrong was 450 yards a game, but the season's on the line against a coachless Hokies team, and you throw it to the right tackle. Come on.
well, if the right tackle makes the play, no.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been one for the ages, though. You swing for the fences. I mean, could have been magic.
What if he knew he knew that Bronco was about to resign, and he's like, "Let's go. I've been waiting for this. I haven't drilled this every Thursday at the end of practice to not be able to at least see if it works. Come on."
Yep.
Okay. So, and I mentioned earlier, Anthony Poindexter had a very like cryptic tweet coming out and saying like the time isn't right now. Much love to the like Virginia program, but I'll be staying at Penn State. So I'm reading this like Tony Elliott was the second choice, that there was some sort of ongoing discussions between Anthony Poindexter, an All-American back at UVA, somebody who, was right there with Brent Pry at Penn State, leading the defense, though not calling the plays, as I believe David Cobb pointed out. But so Jerry Ratcliffe, who's covered Virginia for a long time, he says, a source says, quote, apparently UVA failed to produce something that Poindexter requested, and it's not money. What that quote something was, no sources could confirm. Speculation is that Virginia asked Poindexter to keep some of former coach Bronco Mendenhall's staff, and that Poindexter balked.
Possibly. There's it could be a number of different things. I mean, it's like somebody tweeted too, I can't remember who it was, but it was like Poindexter, something fell apart, and that's probably what it was. But it could be that, it could be a commitment to facilities and building, it could be anything about, like we talk about Tony Elliott and what you can and cannot recruit to Virginia. Maybe Poindexter was hoping he'd get some more, relaxed kind of academic requirements for players, and they wouldn't budge. And I don't know. It could be anything. Poindexter obviously is a Virginia alum. He played there. So whatever it was, maybe Penn State just came and said, maybe James is like, listen, man,
I can't lose both.
I already lost half my defensive coordinators. How about this raise and you stay? And maybe that convinced him to stay. Who knows? But it's, there's all sorts of things that could put these things together. And, if it wasn't working, it's better to figure that out now than to just be like, screw it, I'll take it and we'll figure it out later, because that usually doesn't work.
Anything else from the coaching carousel that has stood out? I saw Mike McIntyre looks like he's going to be at FIU. What were some of the other?
Jason Garrett. Did you guys already talk Jason Garrett to Duke? Did I miss that show?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit yesterday.
We want that, though. I mean, I kind of want it to happen just for our content purposes, right? I mean, yes, please give me some more of that. Has never been in the collegiate game, but he went to Princeton, so he's smart. And
that's what we said.
Yeah.
We said nerds only apply, because like even Tony Elliott's a little bit of a nerd.
Yeah, he's got an engineering degree. What a nerd!
We'll see. I was wondering if maybe the Jason Garrett wasn't them also doing some background info on some other coaches. Like Dabo Swinney to Oklahoma doesn't mean Dabo Swinney to Oklahoma. It means Oklahoma's talking to Dabo Swinney about Brent Venables.
Yeah,
like one of those connections.
Maybe Jason Garrett could be Dabo's new offensive coordinator.
Let's go. Buckle up. When we on the assistant coaching carousel, LSU lost. I guess I wasn't sure if Corey Raymond was going to be officially retained by Brian Kelly, but Corey Raymond, a defensive back coach for LSU, has landed at Florida. Randy Shannon is going to be the new linebackers coach at Florida State. As you're looking at some of these other pieces on the assistant coaching carousel, anything stand out?
I love Randy Shannon. Just like he's been the assistant or head coach at like every single school in Florida, at least twice.
Danny, do you know him?
Yeah, I covered him a couple times, covered some of his games when he's at Miami. I've met him a few times at UCF. Like I've met him a couple times along. He's a great dude. Like you can make, like some of these guys are like, oh yeah, great guy, like fits in easy, like it's a good fit. But that is a confusing one for a lot of Florida State, UCF, Miami fans. Like, what do you do with him? Like, do you still root for him or do you hate him? Like it's an interesting one.
Is he just in with like you get him and you are getting relationships with
with all the high school
Yep.
coaches. Recruiting is awesome, and I think he's a good defensive mind too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good coach, and he's got tons of recruiting connections within the state.
Yeah.
So what's the haps with Max Johnson, huh, Danny?
I don't know. I think it'd be awesome. I forget who it was said, package deal in the works potentially. I have texted my guy Brad directly just to find out what the heck's going on. I got to get to the bottom of this and see what's up. But I don't know, like, what's legal, what's not legal as a Florida State alum. Like, what can I do?
Oh yeah, you don't want to be a booster and cause an NCAA violation.
Exactly. And yet we could like funnel some money. He could be a Cover 3 NIL project too. We could just pay him a boatload of money to be the face of our podcast. And he has to do it in a Florida State uniform. We could do that legally, but I probably couldn't text him or something. That would be illegal, which is also such a sham. I think it'd be great. I liked what I saw on the field from him. I know Mike Norvell is not that he's not happy with Jordan Travis, but you're always looking to upgrade, and that would be a significant one to me. And if you get his younger brother as a tight end, would be pretty fun too. And I know I feel like Brad would like it. I wouldn't be surprised if George is in play. I haven't even looked. I don't even pay attention like where the top choices are.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up in Athens. They need a quarterback too. So
give me Brad's number. I want to text him and tell him all about beautiful Champaign, Illinois. I want to let him know everything that's available to him there and what the Illini can do for his children.
Yeah, what did Bud say? It's like, hey, have you spent your entire life in the Southeast? Like, welcome to Champaign, Illinois.
Listen, he might get drafted by Buffalo. You got to be ready.
That's right. That is true. Coca had a good one that we did not talk about. Mark Whipple to Nebraska. Like, I was surprised when Mark Whipple stepped down. Must be a personality thing with Narduzzi because you come off that year and you just step down and then a day later take the job at Nebraska. I think Nebraska is poised. I'm sure you guys probably feel the same way. I mean, when you're 3-9, but you lose all those games by one possession, it feels like you're close. Adrian Martinez is in the transfer portal. Looks like he's leaving. So you get a fresh start at quarterback. Bring in Whipple, who's an offensive mind that just, led this offense with Kenny Pickett, who I do think is like, I don't think he's Joe Burrow. I don't think he's that transcendent talent. Thank you. But I do, like, he's a good quarterback that was developed into this great quarterback. Like, I think that should be exciting for Nebraska fans. Like, I think Nebraska could turn this thing around sooner rather than later. And by the way, if they don't, I think, we all know what happens then. But I think this is a big opportunity for Nebraska.
There's also, it depends on who you talk to. Sometimes people are but there are some people who think Spencer Rattler is going to end up in Lincoln too. So
Scott Frost did the Jim Harbaugh, right? He did the renegotiated deal for less money. And my unsourced rumor that I'm going to bring to the Cover 3 podcast is it sounded to me like Mark Whipple is going to be getting a nice little pay raise. Like it might not even be bad feelings with Pat Narduzzi. When I saw the resignation, I was like, oh, that's alarming. And then you see him land and it was like, oh yeah, like they are going to go and they're going to throw some money. What is it? Mickey Joseph is going to be also coming in and joining that staff. So they are reallocating some funds to try to be able to improve a staff that most of which was like fired before the end of the season, right? Yeah, they're doing whatever they can for definitely a last ditch effort. And what I will challenge Nebraska is we're all going to be on your side. Like there was that first freshman year where they win the last 4 games. They finished 4-8 overall. And we're coming back. We're talking about Adrian Martinez, his sophomore season, like he's some kind of Heisman Trophy dark horse. We get let down. And then in next season, we kind of get let down. But this season, as you mentioned, with the way that they played against the best teams on their schedule, against a very difficult schedule, I think that everybody's going to be on the side of like, not that you're going to win 10 games, but the expectation is that this is going to be a 7-8, maybe more win team, and dealing with expectations sometimes can be as difficult as, trying to address the problems in personnel and coaching.
They got to get to a bowl game next year.
I mean,
if they don't, it's just,
and sad.
I think they will.
I hope they do because it's, I think it's better for the Big Ten. Yeah.
Without a doubt. And like when you look at the rest of the division, there's There's no reason against the 6 teams that Nebraska plays in its division. There should be 3 to 4 wins there.
I don't know. I mean, Illinois is a transcendent power.
But 3 to 4.
As long as one of them is not Illinois.
Okay. I'm asking you to go 3-3 in division play and then go and catch me a couple of non-cons.
Does Nebraska, who is their non-con next year? Let me check that real quick, see what that is, so we can start. This is great podcasting, by the way.
Well, I mean, we're trying to give the most accurate information because otherwise I could just
Let's see their schedule next year. They open with Northwestern in Ireland. So that's kind of a weird thing. They've got North Dakota, so that's a win. Georgia Southern in Lincoln, that should be a win. But they've got Oklahoma again, this time in Lincoln. That's rough. So, like, now you've got
that's year one, Brent Venables, post transfer portal exodus.
Yeah, but there's still a gap between you and them. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that gets closed.
Well, I was going to say, you glossed over North Dakota pretty quick. Aren't they a pretty good FCS? But I know North Dakota State is good, but I think North Dakota is pretty good too. Like, you better make sure you win that one first.
Like that'll be Oklahoma's 3rd or 4th game too. So it's like if it was the first game of the season, I would feel like Nebraska had a better shot with all their continuity going against a whole new staff. But a month into the year, I don't know. Crossovers, they get Rutgers, Indiana, and Michigan, and both Rutgers and Michigan are on the road. So it's gonna be tough to win that Michigan game. But Rutgers and Indiana is a pretty, like, when you're a Big Ten West team and you get your 3 East opponents, if you get the Rutgers and Indiana or Maryland on there, you're generally pretty happy with it.
Any combination of Rutgers, Indiana, and Maryland. Has any Big Ten West team ever gotten all 3? Because that's a Big Ten West champion right there.
Illinois has had Maryland and Rutgers a lot lately, but I don't think anybody's ever had all 3 because of the way that, like, the protected rivalries and all that stuff work.
Put it in the that's a challenge for the mailbag. Find me the time that a Big Ten West team has drawn in a 9-game conference schedule, or will draw if they've got the future schedule set. Rutgers, Indiana, and Maryland, because that's how you make it to Indianapolis right there.
But you know what the good news is for Nebraska as far as bowl eligibility next year? Like, obviously they have Northwestern in Ireland, but if you look at their home games in the Big Ten, Indiana, Minnesota, Purdue, and Illinois. Like, those are teams you can beat, and you're getting them all at home, which means you should beat them.
But they were supposed to beat a lot of teams this year too.
Yeah, they were supposed to beat Illinois and Lincoln a couple years ago too, and we saw what happened there, didn't we?
Chesty about Illinois football.
We dominate the Huskers here. That's what we do.
Danny, enjoy Army Navy. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Watch CBS Sports HQ to see him. Joe Musso?
Yeah, he's our host.
Who else is going to be? Is it just the 2 of y'all? Or
I think it might be. I think it's just a 2-man show. I think
so. Musso's from Chicago. He'll be out there in a T-shirt. He'll be fine. He won't care.
And Dane's from Wisconsin. He's used to it.
I'll be the one bundled up. It's 65. They're going to be like, it's so warm. I'll be out there with a trench coat on, scarf.
So check him out on CBS Sports HQ. And, of course, follow him on Twitter at Danny Cannell. You can watch Tom and I on the Army Navy watch party on youtube.com/cover3. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.